Hello, everyone. Greetings once again. Oh boy, that countdown happens, and you're kind of watching the numbers. And I don't have a script. Oh, but welcome back. If you're watching this, I'm doing this straight off live stream. One thing I like about live streaming is I don't have to edit afterwards. Editing is a good amount of work because I try to go over and I start rethinking things that I've done or you know add, enhance, and doing all these other things. I'm learning. I want to cover some things. The last time I got on here, we delved into the subject of consciousness, and I want to continue that. A couple months ago, I produced a video that I talked about, um, actually about the power of love. And so today we're going to talk about the power and consciousness of love, because we are a society, we're a social fabric that basically have become quite familiar with and quite practiced at following the money, and therefore our attention is on money. And because we're following it, the flow of that money tends to have passed by us, generally before we've had some actual benefit from it ourselves. I mean, really, in the sense of how much money comes to you in the course of a day, a week, a month. Uh, for most people, for most people, the amount that comes through your influence, to you and through you, is not enough to cover the essentials. It's really interesting. There are a lot of people that are in that place, a lot of people who are in the place where they are barely covering the essentials, etc., etc. And so many people would be really, really happy if they didn't have to think about covering the essentials. And ultimately, that is about flow. And one thing that we don't think about is that, let me change over here. So if there's someone on and taking notice, I at least can, someone says something, or types something, I'll notice it. The point basically is that what I want to address is how we think, because how we think, uh, oh, you shielded up my drip faucet 1 year to get people into, okay, either way, it was a good video and something I showed. Thank you. Well, I appreciate that. Well, I didn't shield the drip. Quite frankly, that's my experience. I still love it. What did I do? I just compounded yesterday. Drip is what drip is. Stunner Breezy calls drip the best thing in DeFi. I agree with him. CoopCrowd basically it's decentralized, but it's not DeFi. It's a totally different way of doing things. And so I'm happy you let people know, because that's one reason I continue to come back on here. There's a lot to know about what is actually happening. And for the most part, we see things from a certain frame of mind. Okay. And our frame of mind is conditioned by, one, our experience, also by our education. And I'll tell you this, being a boomer, if you will, having been around the sun a few times, I just had my 71st anniversary on this ship called Earth, and so I've seen quite a bit of things happen. And when Bitcoin came around, well, I wasn't early into Bitcoin. I was 2017 is when I awakened, if you will, to Bitcoin. Is the year that it went over 1,000 for the first time, and of course people thought it was going to do this really, really big, up and everything else. But basically, it started a process where I started to see how money is actually used. Because before Bitcoin became a reality, and I look at the people, I came across it, aware of it in 2017. It had already been around for essentially 9 years, but it really wasn't a factor. I mean, maybe for the people who could see it from the beginning, where it was, when it became a dollar, they were really excited about it, or when it became $100, they were really excited about it. But, you know, all of the negative thinking, people have had to get over all their present negative thinking. And I'm not saying this with judgment. When I talk in terms of negative thinking, it's unfamiliarity for one thing. It's thinking for which there's no base of experience. There's no base of comparing. They don't have a reference point. And this is what's going on. This is what has kept the adoption of the crypto space slow, for one thing. People are staying with what they're familiar with. So they are by default going to be quote unquote negative. Okay. In that respect, it's going to seem that way. But basically, it's a part of it is not having enough experience. And then, secondly, is that we're so bombarded with negative opinions from erstwhile experts on the space. So all you hear about the crypto space is negativity. I mean, this FTX situation as an example, I'm sitting here looking at this, and of course now Kevin O'Leary is a big mouthpiece in this. They've sequestered. I'll use that word. They've sequestered SBF as an example, and have gotten him away where he can't say anything about it, because if he opens his mouth enough, it's just they can't control that. So someone stopped, got him out the way the day before he was supposed to be in front of Congress. But on the other hand, the question is this: we have had a Congress, as an example, that has for the last 2+ years with this election, you've got these houses, you've got these groups who have decided, well, if we control all the voting and the voting blocks, we don't even have to talk to the other people who are on the other side, who are representing another point of view. We don't even have to talk about it or talk to them, so to speak. And the public is just sitting back, maybe aghast, or if they're so partisan, they're just angry at the other group. And so you got this blame thing going on back and forth. You have this constant antagonism going back and forth. And ultimately, you have that situation going on where nothing really substantial, nothing real is actually happening. No real service is occurring. And yet, when it gets down to the question of the crypto space, they are now bipartisan in their concern about the lack of regulation. Excuse me. Now they're bipartisan. And I said this on another video, maybe whether I brought it up or not, but the issue, because there's all this big interest in regulation. They want a justification to come in to regulate it, to jump on and control, and to dictate what can be and how access. They want control over every aspect of that. And you know something? They want it enough that you start looking at how this person, as Sam Bankman-Fried, came about, how he's come to being in a position of having access to or influence over such a large amounts of funds. And on top of it, you look at how those funds were distributed in very, very partisan ways, for one thing. And the very people who are very up and hot and bothered by and wanting this regulation are also the ones that are now sitting back on this these committees. And it's just interesting how he bought favors, and he has been treated, as far as I'm concerned, with kid gloves. Even the mouthpiece that they had on that hearing, I guess it was yesterday, Kevin O'Leary. I had a problem with him personally. Say not personally. I don't know the guy, but when I look at his positions on things, in 2017, he was among the people who were dissing Bitcoin and calling it this, along with the heads of Chase Manhattan and Goldman Sachs and all the present trusted people in that area. And so somewhere along the line, he kind of got saw the light, and then he became one that was pushing and supportive of all these ideas. But one thing I saw some video, some interview of him, and he said essentially that he could not present and be positive, apparently because of whatever some influence or some affiliations that he has. He could not be truthful, and therefore, but now you're supposed to accept what he's saying now because apparently he could. Excuse me, the man is an actor. In fact, I saw something just a day or two ago, watching something where he actually mentioned how he had to get clearances from SAG, the Screen Actors Guild. The man is an actor. You got people sitting there even now acting. Whether they're reading from a script or reading from a teleprompter or not, this is theater. And the theater is basically to go after this thing called the crypto space. You even have the Bitcoin maximalists who are also, in the sense, looking at anything that is not Bitcoin as essentially trash. I mean, they're calling Cardano and I don't know if this guy called Hoskinson's out directly. But ultimately, you got everyone calling for regulation, and because to protect someone from something else. However, who is regulating the regulators? This is not supposed to be a come in and attack and a command and control operation. But the mindset that they have set in place by structuring this buildup of FTX, and then structuring and actually sucking out the value, so to speak, redirecting that value from the millions or thousands or whatever people that put it in to a few folks, many of whom are very, very politically connected. The structuring of that so that they can be brought down and become a reason to go in. Now there's this justification. And it somewhat surprises me that so few people see it that way, or at least are reporting it that way. I mean, I look at it and I listen to Max Kaiser, I listen to Michael Saylor in his comments. I haven't listened. One guy I used to love to listen to was Andreas Antonopoulos. He just had these talk about Bitcoin and what it meant. And ultimately, those issues still matter because this is really still about people having and creating a flow and having enough. And the truth of the matter is, Bitcoin itself is not going to do that for anyone. Nothing is going to do that for anyone other than the people themselves. We tend to, when we get into this idea of blaming people for different whatever things that befall us, we tend to absolve ourselves of our own involvement or our own lack of activity that would actually have protected us from that problem. Here, I mean, Kevin O'Leary is doing that right now. I mean, well, yesterday or whatever, in that hearing, the man gets $15 million from FTX to be a paid shill for them. That alone should be dismissing him from or disqualifying him from having anything to say, because he can't have anything other than a biased opinion to shift blame someplace else. But again, those people are sitting there listening to him, acting as though what he's saying actually means something and matters. I mean, you got to sit there and watch and see this what's going on. So yeah, I get back on here too because we do need to hear about these things. There needs to be some level of appreciation for, frankly, the sham that is actually happening. And the question becomes, how can you change it? Because if you listen to the experts, you can't. You got on one side, you got folks with the what is it, the CVD, the central bank digital currencies they're trying to work out. You got them. That's one alternative that they want to do because it's going to have all kind of hooks in there so that they can turn things on, turn things off as far as your value, the value that you entrust to their institutions. It turns out that if you put it in their institution, they're the ones who are holding the keys to the availability of it back to you, and that actually exists even now. So you got that, you got the crypto space, you got the Bitcoin space, but ultimately, those are all effects, and some of them are better than others. And so, yeah, I talked about that. I think what Drip really excited me about it, and I'm not saying this in past tense because there's enough people who are in investment thinking, and when they see what Drip does, and it has not stopped doing, I mean, I've had minimal activity in the animal farm, okay, and that's again another thing. It's taken me time to grasp various things. Drip, I just got faster than anything else, and it started acting right off. The point basically is that when FTX imploded, that was like a domino being pushed and knocking over other things. That's the attempt. Whether it happens or not is another question. Only time will tell. But what did happen is that it affected people's confidence in the crypto space. If it affected people's willingness to put more funds in, not to mention whatever funds get sucked out of people's influence. So yeah, that impacted. That means less money going into Drip. That means here O'Leary is trying to bring Binance down. What effect would that have? See, everything is interconnected, even though we tend to think it is not. It is all interconnected. And because it is all interconnected, we actually can do something about it. So I started talking about CoopCrowd because it works on a totally different principle, for one thing. And it also, it works on a different principle. It has impacts on other levels that are not a part of the typical investment type situation where there's winners and losers. Okay, the investment scenario basically is all focused on the money, and if your holders don't have diamond hands and they're selling because of their panicking, people aren't always selling because of their panicking. Sometimes they still need to pay bills, and if they've got some assets that have some value, or even if they see that value going down, people want to grab some of it. I totally understand it. It is what happens. And when you have an event like this FTX situation, again, it wasn't anything personal to Drip. It affected everyone and everything. The point basically is that there are waves, and I anticipate that there's going to be funds coming back in. For one thing, people are going to redirect it back. It's certainly my hope that there will. And I have continued to compound in my Drip. I'm now over 7,000 Drip, and so we'll see what happens there. However, as I said, co-op crowd is not an investment type in the way and in the thinking that uh, DeFi or Drip or any or Bitcoin it's in a different place altogether. It's its mechanism is about relationship, and what you have to exercise with co-op crowd is uh, frankly, these are steps of consciousness. You got to deal with your desire to be positive, to make a positive change. Um, when we have blame going back and forth among people, if we have acrimony, if we have antagonism, these are all low expressions of consciousness. That's where I was amazed to read many years ago a book called Power versus Force by David R. Hawkins. And he created this, what's called a map of consciousness. He wrote a book about it. He wrote quite a few books, but he started to show the relationships between a particular expression of consciousness and there's an area what's called force, and then there's an area called power, and there's another quality in the realm of force. It would also be described as weak and and strong as the contrast to that. And so when you see and I'll go even right over here, there's a value, they call it a scale, that's right here, that each guy apparently did. He's a PhD and an MD, and they did a couple 100,000 tests over 20 some odd years in seeing how these relationships manifest. And so, if you're just talking about blame, and when you look down the blame, this is like an emotion, it registers as 30 in on this scale. And this scale is not linear. So 30 is not 50% more than 20, etc. It's a logarithmic scale. And so these are factors, exponential factors, if I understand it correctly. When you get, like, if you got 20 is 20 to the 10th power, but 30 would be um, uh, 30 to the, I don't know if it'd be the 30th power, but there'll be it's much larger, and they did write some books about it, so it's definitely a book I would recommend. When you get to this number of 100, you're at fear. Okay, so fear is at 100. Fear is a higher expression of consciousness than blame, guilt, etc., apathy and despair. Look at this. And how does this, I mean, this describes so much our society today. I mean, this is what is common. This is clickbait. This is all the range of clickbait. Even in our sports and our competition, you've got pride. Your pride for your or our party, for our political party. You've got people who are sitting around calling the earth flat, for example, and anyone who don't see that, is cockeyed, or, all of that is below 200. Okay, people are saying the worst things to each other and about each other, and people they don't know and they don't care to know. You got a whole little group of people in what part of the world are we talking about? Somewhere in Europe, someplace, who are deciding, and it's not just their cliques of these folks, but they work together, but they're deciding that what they think is right for the entire world population is what's supposed to happen. All that stuff is the realm of force and it's all weak. It's all weakness. It's either fear they're trying to do. They're trying in some kind of way to get people. There's aggression. Where's where's hatred? Uh, there's your anger. This is all 150. That is even under pride. So all this is under 200. This is all the realm of weakness of force. To get something positive. Thank you very much, Jonathan, for sure. To get beyond those things, we have to raise our way of thinking, and we have to raise our regard. And that includes raising our sense of value. See, we've been following the money, but not tracking the value. We have not been valuing ourselves. We value others when they have attracted a whole bunch or influenced money. But if we don't, if we haven't established that habit of receiving and having and owning, so to speak, or having our own value, having the lordship of our own value, that's a point of consciousness itself. And that's something that has to be dealt with. And I'm part of you could say, generations that was always looking out for someone else before yourself. And what does that do? It's not so much that you don't look out for others when you look out for yourself, but you have to be inclusive of yourself. You have to love yourself. They talk about loving your others as much as yourself. Well, you got to love yourself too before you even have a litmus test on how to treat someone else. And so we are a society, you can get through an education system, you can get through it where people are chasing dollars, people are trying to gain the approval of people who don't approve of them and who think because they're making enough money themselves and they're comfortable, they don't have to. Okay? You got to be an equal to others who may not even see you as an equal. You have to know you are an equal yourself simply for whether you got money or not. These are matters of consciousness. And having come through an education system, a social system, a socialization system, and I'm sitting here watching this stuff that is going on, there's some things that are lacking. And here, to start right off in terms of this map of consciousness is courage. So courage, for example, from fear, again, this is logarithmic. So courage is not 2 times the value or the energetic magnitude of fear, but it would be some other kind of number in terms of more zeros. Okay, it means a lot more. So in other words, you might one person who is at 200 would counteract the negativity of maybe 100 or 1,000 who are in fear. Okay, there is a balance going on at all times in I'm going to say the universe, but also here on this planet. There's a planet is always in balance from an energetic standpoint. And so when you've got millions upon millions who are in some level of fear or anything, or just in force, any of these areas here, then there are people who are also at this level and up. And the further you go up, the more negativity, if you will, you can counteract, so to speak. And the point here's love. Love is here. It's 500. You've got fear at 100. Love is at 500. And therefore, one person or some number of people who are at love will counteract the negativity of probably a few million people who are in fear. Now, the point is that anyone at any time can be expressing love. This is not something only a few people are capable of. Everyone is capable of it. a lot of people are very much more sparse in the expression of it, in the sharing of their love. And that becomes the rub because when you withhold your love, which in matters of money, m- love's not a factor, all right? But when you withhold it, you you're cutting your own spigot off. Love and life are the same thing. I have a website that I'm building right now called Love is Home because that's where we are. Love is home to to what we are. We are something that exists before these forms, and we're something that exists afterwards. That's another thing. Here I'm in the boomer stage of my life, and the fact of the matter is, I have seen these, for myself at least, I've seen these ideas, I've asked these questions, I've seen the evidence that we are something that we we're concerned about aging and death and all those things and disease and all those things. And if and when you know who you are, what you are, etc., there is no need to be afraid of those things. We are afraid because we are accustomed to be the people who influenced us, or the ideas that influenced us, or the institutions that influenced us, basically suggested that we ought to be. And then you got this idea that some people are quote unquote bad and some people are good, and there's got to be this tug of war between the bad and the good. And it's all poppycock. That's kind of where it gets to. We have the ability to imagine a different way of living. We have the ability to see a different future, and we have the power to make that future come into existence for ourselves. Now, I can't help anyone who wishes to hold on to a negative frame of mind, to to disease, or uh, to antagonism. And if they are antagonistic, they will find someone or something to play with them, so to speak. One of the people who I really enjoyed his writing, his name is Neville Goddard. And one of the things that he said is that what you imagine imagines you. Now, how do you feel about that statement? What you imagine imagines you. Now, if your focus, the focus of your thinking, is on things that are uh, bad, the things that can happen to you that are, etc., then what you imagine imagines you. On the other hand, if you are thinking of uh, plenty, okay, the receipt of having and building a store, if you're thinking of a way to protect, to shelter yourself, first of all, to build a store of value so you have enough to do the things that you want to do when you want to do them, no matter how much they cost. Right now in our thinking presently, I know a lot of people who want to do something different. They want to make this world a better place, but they think they can't do it because they don't have enough money. They have to somehow get the money. They have to somehow talk to someone, etc. And that's where, gosh, I've looked at this co-op crowd thing, this idea, this functioning on the principle of a cooperative, and where you got all these folks that are bickering and jockeying for control and influence over these different things, the crypto space, the Bitcoin space, the fiat space. There, all this stuff is going on, and all of this chaos and stuff. And here's something that is not any of those things, called Co-op Crowd, using cooperative instead of competition, instead of us versus themism and all these other things, and jockeying and robbing and everything else. Here is something where people basically, you join this thing, you put something in it, you put some funds in it, and everyone does the same amount. The system is not um, metered, or it doesn't change based on the amount that you put in that sense. It changes based on the connections that you make. So you put in, you are literally making a donation, if you will, into this system, and you're doing this on actually every 28 days. However, you are also, in making that donation to 10 people, it's not going to a central crowdfunding authority, which looks at what is this? What are you trying to do, and trying to justify whether your project has merit or not. None of that is going on at all. Simply put is 10 people to receive. You likely know the person that invited you, but beyond that, you don't know, and it's not meaningful. And so, but then you receive these tokens, these information pieces, and essentially you invite three people to do the same thing that you did, and you talk to as many people as you need to, until three people have activated. They got a wallet, a co-op wallet, and activated, and you receive, the moment they activate, you receive plus nine other people behind you receive. So and but then, okay, now you've got three, and so, and every 28 days you'll receive from those three. Now the thing about it, if it takes you just a week, it doesn't have to take that long, but if it takes you a week to get your three, and then the next group of three, now they're sending their three out. There's now nine new ones going out. And let's say those three people did the same thing you did, and within a week's time, they got their three. So now you don't come out of pocket anymore, because you are now making from the 12, you got three plus nine, the 12 that are around you, all of their wallets pointing directly to you. You receiving enough to pay for your 20 every 28 days. You don't, no more out of pocket. So, but now that last nine, they're putting their three out. And so now there's 27. And same process continues to occur. And so each person, this is a way that you're building, because the system actually will go to a point where there's 10 tiers. So the three that you put out, that you invited directly, or is your first tier. The three that they invited is your second tier. And so the tiers continue until 10, and they all will point back to your wallet. And then and each person, when they've got the 12 going, they are not putting any more money out at all. But they will have passed on the behavior, they will have passed on the vision, they will have passed on, because they're not using force. They're using all of these things. They're using affirmations. They're using trust. They're using optimism. They are accepting. They're using reason. They're using all of these properties, which are empowering for everyone. Everyone that does this. This is one of the things I love about this platform, is because these are the intangible. This is where the real value, you can say, of love, but it's the real value of humanity is. It's by being these things. Look here, merciful, wise. These are the the uh, the traits, okay, that are not being exercised when we are simply looking at and following the money. Now, the cool thing here is that you can use these traits, and I would add some more. If I'm looking here, I'm not seeing persistence. I'm not looking at stuff like that, because yeah, you got to also have equanimity. That's another term. I don't see that here any place, but or serenity. That's a good thing. Serenity, equanimity. That's probably about it. The point basically is that you are using no's. When people say no, well, okay, fine, keep moving. And those no's can become yeses at some point in time as well. People, again, you don't consider uh, no one's bad because they've said no to you. The point is, they either have an interest or they don't. And a lot of people have a need and they don't have the confidence in themselves to actually stick with it enough to talk to people about these things. And that's another reason why I choose to do these things, because if people are wanting to get some type of an answer or some type of an insight in 5 minutes or less or 15 minutes or less, and yet they have spent years and years of doing things a certain way and not questioning it, and they think they're going to just see the light right off. It's not going to happen. So someone's got to be willing to talk to them and speak to them intelligently and trust, and you could say even dispassionately, whether they buy or not, or they do this or not. But ultimately, you're doing this for yourself. This co-op crowd is actually a way that, and I thought about this too, because when we start to see that we can build up something even more important through cooperation than we can by competing. We're watching. Sometimes I hear watching some of the football games, and you hear here's a lineman, offensive tackle or whatever, and whatever the guys, he gets a contract for however many hundreds of millions of dollars for being grossly, I'll say, overweight, and to push people around, but that's worth many, many millions of dollars of a commitment. And you also see how no matter how many millions the athletes get, it's never enough. Someone wants, well, this person got it. Someone needs to have more. They got to have more. They keep pushing the bar up, yet there's no substantive improvement in the quality of life. Nothing has changed that's actually meaningful. And so the things that are important, the not just relations among us, but infrastructure. There's so many things that need to be. They need some attention. And the way things are right now, I have this belief, I have this feeling, is that as more people empower themselves, as more people begin to use this cooperative method and start funding and building up their store of value, because it's the other thing too, the co-op wallet itself is unique. So here's a cooperative model. Here's a Web3. It's a private. It is a custodial wallet, and I know a lot of people will or will not know the difference between a custodial and a non-custodial wallet. But our PayPal's, Cash Apps, all your bank stuff, those are all custodial wallets, and that basically means some level of control is back there with the issuer of the wallet. So among custodial wallets, the very least amount of custodialship is within the co-op wallet itself, because its principle is totally different. Its purpose is totally different. Its purpose basically is to be a way to manage the movement of funds through the system, as well as manage the connections between each of the members, so that it can do the various disbursements on a timely basis and to the correct people and the correct amounts. That's its purpose. But on the other hand, when it comes to taking funds out, there are no restrictions. You don't have the cool out periods, the timeout periods. There's no whitelisting. There's none of this stuff. outside of having doing a two-factor authentication. That's it. And so you've got actually the ability to put a flat amount in, either $100 or $400, roughly speaking. And I suggest the 400 for anyone, especially. I mean, look at what's happening. They're trying to shore up. There'll be more money coming back in the drip when more people put money back into it. It cannot, and that is every system. Drip is unique because it had so many of its. It didn't have holes. Okay, it has worked because the developer Forex Shark actually was and is conscientious about it, and he has been building a system that would have that interactivity, as well as building I'd say some longevity of, in terms of ongoing use case for it. However, as I said, CoopCrowd is not DeFi. So Drip is the DeFi king. CoopCrowd is not that at all. So you're putting a flat amount in, and for the extra dollars that you put in, you literally get 2 disbursements. Instead of 1 disbursement when people activate, you get 2. And anytime someone else puts also 400 in, as you did, you will get a basic disbursement every time they do that, but you will get also a second disbursement concurrently with it. That's 10 times the first. Okay, so for example, if you put in 400 and someone else put in 400, you would get 20. You get $8.75 when that new person activated. That's what everyone gets, even when they don't they do the regular $100 one. But if you did the 400 and they did 2, you get an additional $87.50. So you have a second token that needs to be active, but it basically is another pool. And so the CoopCrowd system is totally liquid. It's not diffused with products and all the other kind of things that are associated with that. But you are basically building a store of value by one, through the use of this particular decentralized wallet, which is Web3. You can fund with over 100 different cryptocurrencies, but all of the accruals are calculated in US dollars, and all of the US dollars are pegged. They're actually it's not just pegged to the dollar, it's also supported by it. It's backed by those dollars. So it's a liquid system, but you are literally bringing that system, or bringing that liquidity each time. It doesn't exist before you join. So I see this as a really important part of all this. And the other part of it, because I see that love is this kind of really important piece of a puzzle that's generally not a factor. I'm going to do some videos of once, answering some of the questions of our generations. I did one called The Value of Love or something like that. And there was this song called Love Makes the World Go Round. And but then there are some others that are part of our generation too. And one of them was Tina Turner's, What's Love Got to Do with It? What's love got? Well, it made her a whole bunch of money, but it also helped to diminish the power and the value and the respect for whatever this thing love is, but only in perception. Yet we have, frankly, not noticed the absence of it. When I think about love, I think about the things that can be improved when it's present, and how things kind of, break down. They're not as nice when it's missing. There's a flatterness. There's You see love go away, you see that it's not active, and you start seeing other expressions take its place. And so, therefore, you talk about a missing link. Or you talk about the elephant in the room. It is a major elephant, and it's something that is part of everything and everyone. It's part of every when and everywhere in some level of expression. It requires someone who is capable of it, who is aware enough of it to release it, to let it flow. And so when we hold or withhold our love, so to speak, we actually do something, we diminish ourselves. But, again, we're a society that does not yet appreciate this fundamental thing. So, one of the things I am going to be doing as time goes on here is, yeah, I'm going to talk more about love. And I've been thinking about this. This is not something just I started thinking about just recently or with Co-op Crowd or anything else. I think we need to be talking about love more, and we should be loving. Ultimately, we need to be loving, not just talking about it. We need to be feeling it. And so I have a couple of things that I am doing, I'm working on, and one of them, I have a website that is, I don't have a website on it yet. There's not much content, but since between us, I have the domain is called loveishome.co. Okay, so loveishome.co. And love, from where I see things now, we could get into some really fascinating looks at people's accounts for when they've had what's called near-death experiences, as an example. And depending on the view, the way you look at these things, see, because where I am, when I say where I am in my thinking, there is no such thing as death. There's transition, yes. There's a point when we use these forms up, or they don't function anymore. And also, oftentimes, we don't realize is that our thinking is part of what can make these things go. Our habits, okay. So some of it is physical stuff we do, but a lot of it is emotional and mental stuff that we do that takes its toll over time, especially if we are conventional thinkers. And when I say conventional thinkers, I'm talking about we're thinking in terms of good and bad. We're talking about us and them. We're talking about, you over that or this, because the bad is always someone over there and the good is always here, And of course, they're sitting around doing the same thing. Yeah, those folks are bad, etc. That's what I call a not so merry-go-round. And so a lot of people are on a not so merry-go-round, and therefore they're down here in these other areas. They're desiring, craving, they're disappointed. They don't have enough. They don't have sufficiency of joy. They don't have sufficiency of health. I mean, and if you listen to the leaders, you listen to the influencers, what are they telling you to look forward to? More of that, okay? But all the people that are telling you to look forward to these gloomy futures, they don't see themselves as being affected by it. They want you to make all these changes while they sit back and be unaffected, because they got enough coming in of what they think is important. Excuse me, money coming in is not important. The love coming in is. And I tell you, it's if there is no death in actuality, if there is a continuum, which all evidence to me shows that there is a continuum of experience, a continuum of consciousness. That means when your body's done, you're not, okay? However, your attitudes, your ways of thinking, they go with you. Unless you jettison a negative attitude with positive, and I'll say a chaotic, or an angriness, a weak. See, because all that stuff down here, gosh, even inflation is part of the force part, the weak, because it's not real. Okay, they call it inflation when it's really a deflation value. But if people's consciousness is here, leaving the body doesn't change that. Somewhere along the line, the spirit that we are, the soul that we are, etc., the consciousness, that's the continuum. And we, again, we're a society that acts as though that's a part of religion. And again, the religions tell whatever the story. You got to believe a whole bunch of stuff when you jump onto a religion. So I don't consider myself a part of any one particular religious group, but that doesn't change the fact that we have a continuum of beingness. And when you choose to be the best that you can be, you imagine the best that you can imagine. Part of imagining the best that you can is having enough. And the thing about it, though, is if a person does not come to terms with their thinking about things, especially the scorn, the negative types of thinking. Look down here. I'm getting down here. I'm looking over here. What's the life view of evil? Okay. Well, if you flip that word evil around, it's live. Live, it's live. So people aren't living if they're in a mindset of evil. They're not. And to be in that consciousness, you're going to be seeing whatever your consciousness, what you can imagine from that perspective, especially when you're thinking that this is evil versus something else that is good. And we think we've got to act like whatever we think a saint is going to be, as opposed to simply being ourselves, being our loving selves. So we have a lot of social and mental conditioning that has been a part of this journey on Earth. And if life is a continuum and people haven't changed their point of view, then leaving the body is no change. It doesn't have a qualitative change in one's experience in terms of their consciousness. But the change happens when you start to see and allow something within yourself to come out, to speak up, to shift a situation that has probably and possibly festered for some time. So when we give up our anger, when we give up our sense of antagonism, when we start seeing partnership in people in all kinds of ways, when we want to make changes, and that includes changes to our supply of value. So when we start seeing ourselves as the creators of value and deserving of that as well, and the owners of it, then that starts to shift how people who think of themselves as being in high places regard us, okay? Because we have really been conditioned to think of ourselves as being low and lowly, so to speak, and we have no, let's say they have no more power than we do. We have no less power than they do. So then it gets down to the quality of our thinking and the harmony, the harmoniousness of our thinking. And generally, when our enthusiasm level comes up, not generally, when our enthusiasm level comes up, when we are talking about something we care about, when we're visualizing it, we are magnetizing it, we are causing it to come into being, into existence, even if we don't know it. So oftentimes we give energy and thought to things that we do not want to have happen, or we start thinking of it to someone else. We want this to happen to that person, or that whomever, whatever it is we think about them. So we're spending all this time either blaming or condemning someone else, not realizing that we're putting walls around ourselves for the bounty that we would otherwise get and receive if we were open to it. So I see a lot of people in that space, and I have created, I'm going to take this moment to introduce something else I've worked on for some time, because love is the issue. Love is the factor. It is the power. And the other thing is that we have the ability, first of all, not just to think it, but to feel it for one thing. And we also have the power to voice it and to apply it to ourselves. And it's all these words. So it's like I can say first to ourselves, but that even shows linearity. Simply apply it, include ourselves in the love. And to help that along, to help reinforce that, there's the use of what's called decrees. We start voicing the things that we wish. And so I created this, which I'm about to share. Doing right this. Yeah. Okay. What we're about to see is what I call a proclamation. This is called a proclamation of my love. I call it a love proclamation. And I wrote this over 20 years ago, and I have two of them, and you'll see what the difference. But this is the first one. This is one that is called the proclamation of my love. And this is part of an agreement that one would make to one's self. It's a promise. It's you're giving your word that this is the way you're going to be doing things. Okay. So, proclamation of my love. Let it be proclaimed and agreed that I will practice and observe only one acceptable standard of behavior based on and in love that begins with me. Let it be proclaimed and agreed that love shall be the foundation for and energy behind my relationships. That love shall be the motive, reason, quality, and method that lives within each thought, word, action, and deed that comes from me. Let it be proclaimed and agreed that respect for myself and others is an implicit, omnipresent, and integral element of love, and therefore is to be practiced even in the absence of loving feelings. Let it be understood that truth is the cornerstone of trust, and that both will serve as indicators of the health and strength of my love, even if I am alone. Let it furthermore be proclaimed and agreed that love cannot be faked. I consciously choose it and give it willingly and regularly to myself and others, even if I don't receive love from others in return. Agreement to this proclamation does not absolve or relieve me from expressing love verbally or from the privilege of openly confirming love when I am the recipient of such expressions. And so let love be done. Signed, me, witness, and dated. And there's my lovishome.co coming up. So that is the love proclamation. This is something that anyone, everyone should apply to themselves, first of all, and for themselves. You are would be the first recipient of this amazing and powerful gift from yourself, from your higher self, you can say. The other aspect of this goes right here. And this is the other one. It's called the love proclamation for a relationship, and therefore it's the proclamation of our love. And in this case, everything is changed except yeah, everything is the same with the exception of the context, because it's let it be proclaimed and agreed that we will practice and observe only one acceptable standard of behavior, one based on and in love that begins with us. Okay, and you can see that it goes down and it does the same thing in that context, at which point in time, now it's going to be signed by two and witnessed by someone, okay, and dated, etc. But this sets the tone for relationship. What if people did this and they did this in mass? They did it for themselves. First of all, so there could be one of these agreements that a person makes with themselves. You know, we have a higher self, so to speak. We have a higher aspect because that is the love that is us. That is the love that is everyone. It's within everyone. It's always there. And essentially, it's, you could say it's the voice that we either listen to or oftentimes ignore. But if we just, first of all, made this gesture and had some sense and of reality to it, made some reality to it, I think it would be a good thing. Okay. So those are the love proclamations. They will be on loveishome.co at which point in time, or when I get this site set up. I'm pretty much doing all these things at this point in time. But the point basically is this: it is something that everyone can do. It is within the scope, is within the field of everyone, is within the reach of everyone. And as I talked about co-op crowd, that too is within the amounts that are involved in putting that in. I literally consider the funds that you put into co-op crowd is a love offering that you're putting in, and you're setting it out to the universe, if you will. And but you're also connecting three people who will join, and they will do the same thing. And point is, you don't give your token out unless you've talked to someone well enough, or you've shown them whatever you have to show them. There, we've got presentations. There's a lot of information there. But see, the point is, most people's minds are already locked. They're filled with what they already know, and they don't give up what they already know haphazardly. Okay, they don't give it right away. You know, people don't want to be the last, but oftentimes they don't want to be the first either, or be perceived to be that. And yet, in this situation, you've got to want to build your own value, or you want to provide a sufficient amount of shelter, I will call it, from the financial storm that is all around. Co-op crowd is the eye. It's a peaceful place that is actually a place where you can put something in. You make these steps, invite these three people who have agreed to do the same thing. They want the same thing that you want for themselves. You want this for you, they want it for themselves. But by cooperatively putting a deposit in, a loving deposit in, the same way the sun shines, it shines on everyone, everything. There may be clouds here and there, but the sun is always doing its thing. We are now like suns. And that also means that what we put out, we start realizing that what we put out comes back to us. There's a point of knowing and understanding that as well. And so, as we know that we need to put positive out for positive to come back, then from there, you talk to others. There's people that you already know, or you hear, or you have a feeling that this person would actually appreciate this idea. And so you invite them, you start becoming discerning on even who you invite. But ultimately, when you've got your three active, and then they have their three active, you're not out of pocket anymore. But the funds, because they are also doing and inviting their three, and those three invite their three, and those nine invite their three, and the 27, that continues. That's, you just prime the pump of your income coming back to you and building. And all of this is independent of price fluctuations. All this is independent of crypto implosions and platforms. All, you're sheltered from all of this. You and plus it's providing waves of income. So if a person is like me, like I was in the beginning, man, I've been on Telegram, for example, and MetaMask, and I um, I was trying to deposit into some platform and not figuring it out, not quite understanding. So I went to their help group in Telegram, and I put it out there. You know, I need some, I'd like some help. Can someone give me some help there? And so less than 5 minutes later, someone sent me a direct message, and they were technical support for that particular platform. Oh my goodness, how happy was I? And so they asked me some questions, etc., and they wanted me to connect. They were going to connect me to a particular website, and then but I needed to give them my keys for my MetaMask to do this. And you know, oh, naive me, and trusting me, I gave them my keys. And those guys turned around. Guys, I presume guys do this. I have no idea. There's maybe a sexist part of me that only men would think this crap up. But whoever did it, uh, they just drained my that wallet. In fact, they drained two of them. One wasn't enough. My Exodus wallet, I did the same thing with that too, and drained them both. And so now I've got Exodus wallet. I've got new ones, and I've learned. Okay, the cool thing about Co-op Crowd is, first of all, it can't happen within the Co-op Crowd wallet. So first of all, if you've got a Co-op Crowd account and you activated your three and your three are active, funds are simply just coming in, and they will keep coming in every 28 days. They keep coming in, and your tiers, your first tier is 3, your second tier is 9, your third tier is 27, your fourth tier is 200, 81, okay, and the next after that is 243, etc. And so it goes to 10 tiers. But by the 10th tier, there's 59,049 people on the 10th tier. You don't have to know these people. You don't. They're wherever on the planet. But all of them have a little bit of something going back to your wallet based on what you started. And so the total amount of people in a crowd stage that not just any one member, but all members will create is 88,572 when you look at this matrix that is done. You're not the head of a pyramid. You're the center of a circle. All of these wallets are directed back to you because you started it. And the people that you invited, they are the center of their circles. This is not the centralized method whatsoever. This is pure decentralization. Each person is a DAO, a decentralized autonomous authority, and each who invites three and has their three, have their 12 active. Now they literally on autopilot, because like I said, the person that invited me don't know I'm doing this for myself. That person will benefit, but I'm doing this for myself. I'm also doing it for the people that want the same kind of changes in their life that I do, and they can rely and will rely on themselves. I can be relied on, but can't. For me, they need to be the reliant one. We're so accustomed to putting our trust in someone else, but not having an equal amount within ourselves. Look at the possibilities of whether if you're having now uh, six figures of income coming in every 28 days. Look at when you have seven figures coming in every 28 days. And well, yeah, you got this value now. You got the ability to do things. You got the ability to do things simply because you want to, because you have enough, and you can do it now. And you don't have to borrow. Look at how we have become so accustomed and proud, you could say, of having a good credit score or having being credit worthy. And all that means is basically we don't have, first of all, we don't have enough to do it ourselves. And secondly, someone else has deemed us that, for one thing. But ultimately, we're creating debt. Every time you use a credit card, you're creating a debt. And yet we call it a credit card. Okay? It's not, it's a debt card, is what it is. So we think in terms of debt. Someone, you want to buy a home, you don't think about simply just buying the damn home because you got enough money, or buying the land because you have enough. So I wanted the experience of having enough. I also want the experience of being able to simply buy a house, or buy a car, or for me, buy a jet. I was talking to a friend of mine about this yesterday. There's a jet I want. It's about 5 million. But I want those experiences. And the thing about it, I want to popularize those experiences. So it's going to basically mean others are going to be willing or wanting or interested in doing this too. Not for me, for themselves. And then what can we do cooperatively when you've got a bunch of people in a town or community, or wherever you are, pooling their resources? One, because they have it, they don't have to ask someone else, they can protect it. If we're not doing something to protect our value, which typically we're not, then someone else is going to take advantage of that, which is all has been done. Every time we put negative thoughts out to someone else and about someone else, we are devaluing ourselves. We are creating walls for the receipt of our own value. Now, not everyone is looking to make a whole bunch of funds, and I totally get and respect that, and no problem. But for those who are, for those who are following the money, but don't care about the love, they don't care about the loss that others are, the things that we set our love aside for in terms of pitfalls, we become blind to. And I'm not saying this with any judgment. I'm just saying this is what happens. So the point basically is that we're going to have to be courageous. We're going to have to be willing to step into a new area, because if you're not familiar with receiving large amounts of funds, or even simply receiving enough. Just before I started this today, I tuned in to some guy does something on LinkedIn. He does it several times a day, and but I used to see these things pop up. So and so is live on BBS radio and stuff like that, and I see it all the time. And so I finally just, what's going on? And it turns out that there were two people talking on camera. One lady was talking to another lady, and this other lady was homeless, and she was talking about these agencies that are all set up, and the trend of homelessness is is growing. That's our growth trends. Okay, why not have a trend in having enoughness? Okay, so you can have your own home. Why not do those things? And so I watched that, and there's some other videos you can watch, and I've seen about homelessness. Over 600,000 people in the U.S. and rising, whereas almost none in Finland, because Finland made it a commitment, made it a national commitment that they would help people. But ultimately, how about helping having people help themselves? When if I can do this thing with Co-op Crowd, if you can do this thing with Co-op Crowd, it does a number of different things in the sense that it's not that if I can, but when I do, uh, it basically means that I'm evidence that one, the system does work as described, and ultimately as cooperation does pay off. You see, because again, this is not the typical investment thing. It has nothing to do with the value of a token whatsoever. So they're not securities. This is an activity that you're doing. Your and your success at doing this, it depends on simply inviting three people to do the same thing. That's, I'll say, stage one. That is, and also shepherding, being present, supporting the three that you invite to do what you did. That's the second part of it. That's you're creating, you're teaching, you're showing, you're staying present, you're committing to stay present, so that they will have a successful experience for one thing, and they will pass that success on to the experience, the vibration of it, so to speak, the consciousness of it. These are the things that we need to pass on. And as we pass these traits on, these habits, we will then our life will be enriched from the moment we do this with anyone, whether they say yes or no. But secondly, as we start to succeed and as they start to succeed, the consciousness of each changes for the better, first of all. And that is how you start to change the the narrative. You change it from the inside. It's not like you got to go out and have an argument with anybody on anything. You get over your own, I get over my own inner arguments. I get over my own limitations. I get over my own hesitancy for sharing the things that I care about, okay, being exposed, etc. You get over concern over it. Ultimately, we are concerned about the future, we're concerned about the present, we're concerned about the past, but what does that leave us? We leaves people in stasis. They're not doing anything positive. So you can't have a positive outcome without positive uh, input. And this is a place and a way where we can put a small amount in terms of money, make a small gestures in terms of inviting people to join and being with them, etc., and reaping a major change and in the way in the value that we have available that we can use uh, to change, first of all, our own life for one thing. And I love the idea of introducing this idea, this concept to people who may be homeless. Again, they're going to have to be positive, but I have to say this: no one is all one thing. There are going to be positive people every place you go. There are going to be people who want to make a change, who get this, who see it, and they're going to want to do it for themselves. And they will. And they'll go to people that are within those communities and actually invite them to do the same thing. This is, talk about having something go viral, something positive, something that excites you for the right reasons, okay? For the positive, harmonious reasons. I mean, what else have we got to lose? Lack, disease. We got a lot of things to lose. But how bad is that? So, at any rate, I think that's what I got to say for now. Oh, there I go again. See, I can get on and almost an hour and a half. 90, 100, an hour 25 minutes, and I'm just going. Once I get started, just like whoa. So, at any rate, I think I started losing track of the days. Today is Thursday, as it turns out. Um, I'm going to do this again tomorrow. I will continue uh, to do this in the next couple of weeks. I know I'm going to be doing a little bit of traveling for around the Christmas, uh, but um, but that's all right. But bottom line is, I want to thank you for tuning in. We'll grow this idea. I have something else along the lines of the map of consciousness that I showed you, and I'm looking here to try to. Oh, so what I am going to do the next time, and I'll give you a preview now, but this is something I've worked on for the last couple of years. I read this book, Power versus Force, over 20 years ago. I even, when I had my podcast, I had a podcast called Talk for Food, and I did about 250 of those shows, and it was on web at talkradio.net. I just today uh, re-uploaded one of my Talk for Food episodes, and this is with a author by the name of Stephen Ross. I uploaded it on SoundCloud, and I will give you that way of connecting with it. But right now, there's just a few videos, not videos. These are audios only. But one of my Talk for Food shows was a conversation I had with David Hawkins. Now, I think he passed in 2012, but somewhere in that time frame. So it was before that, okay? But I really loved that book. There's another one that's been published since then about the map of consciousness. It's called The Map of Consciousness Explained. But in Power versus Force, the whole concept was introduced of the map of consciousness, and this is it. Well, one thing that I have done over this is probably the last year, and I've been working at this, but I'm going to show this now. I'll turn this off for a second. I will move over here, and I will pull it right here, and I'm going to come back in, turn this on, and what you're seeing is a here we go. Let's see here. Hold on. Where is my... Oh, here we go. Here's the map of consciousness, recontextualized. All the same information, but more. So when we come back next time, we're going to look at this. Because again, it's just like CoopCrowd. I said, you just look at it different. People say that looks like a pyramid. Well, no, to me, it's like a circle, and you're the 0 point, and every one is a 0 point in their own circle. Okay, so yeah, the map of consciousness, the logarithmic scale, and you can see the logarithmic scale here, and it goes in. So I have a way that I can zoom and move around a little bit more, but I figured let's start with a sneak preview. So consider this a sneak preview, okay? And once we start to see the relative effects of our thinking, our ways of using our minds, our consciousness, and everything else, we start becoming more mindful of what we're putting out, because guess what? We're getting it back whether we know it or not. And that's one of the things I loved about this map of consciousness. It actually put it in context, even with his book. But I've taken this and done what I've done here. So we're going to talk more about this where can you get that chart? This is also going to be on loveishome.co. So you can only get it from me because I created this. I will I'll do another little. We'll talk about this when I come in next time, and then I'll get this on the site so that this can be. But it don't exist anywhere yet. I have looked, and when I could see it, I decided to do it myself. So let us talk some more, okay? I love it. Um, I want to thank you for being present and doing this interactively with me. Yeah, yeah, yeah. Yes, it does. It does, and more. That's the whole point. You're going to see even more on there that is not in the original one. So, but it's just beautiful. And it's the whole idea is to see the effects of what we're doing, to see our power. We have power now. We have always had power. We always will have power. The question is, how do we use it? That's the issue. That's the opportunity, you know? So it's the gift. So I'm going to check out for this time. I want to thank you for being present and interacting. I think I've resisted this myself, and so but I can't resist the urge to do this any either. So anyway, here we go. Let's do this thing. Until next time, I wish you peace, prosperity, joy, and happiness. And I'll tell you, and I love you all. Wish you love, and I love you all. Till next time, take care.